Amazing twist, single mom drives home drunk CEO. What happens next will change her life forever. The diner was almost empty, save for a few late-night stragglers nursing plates of cold fries, while Sarah wiped down the counter for what felt like the millionth time. Fatigue clung to her bones, a weight she knew too well. Each shift melded into the next, a repetitive blur of breakfast rushes and lonely evenings filled with silence broken only by the clinking of dishes and soft jazz. How many times had she dreamed of a life beyond these greasy walls? A life where she wasn't just scraping by, but thriving. Yet, as she locked up after another exhausting double shift, her thoughts of a brighter future were interrupted by a wild commotion outside. There he was, Jake, the CEO of that booming tech startup that everyone in town was always buzzing about, stumbling through the parking lot like a fallen star. Dressed in an expensive suit, he looked ridiculously out of place, and his half-lidded eyes said everything about his state. Normally, she'd ignore someone like him, privilege oozed from his every pore, and what could he possibly know about her struggles as a single mother? But something tugged at her. Maybe it was the spark of human decency buried beneath layers of alcohol and bravado. Or maybe it was sheer desperation. "Hey, need a ride?" she asked, her voice wavering as she wrestled with the decision. Was she really about to do this? Her mind raced with the possibilities, weighing the burden of this choice against her already precarious life. But as she glanced at the infuriatingly handsome yet vulnerable man, she couldn't just leave him there. What if he was dangerous? She swallowed hard. What if she was a fool for even considering it? "Yeah, sure, I guess," he slurred, managing a lopsided smile that somehow melted a small part of her skepticism. With a reluctant sigh, Sarah gestured for him to get in the passenger seat, her heart hammering against her ribs, a mixture of dread and a flicker of hope threading through her veins. The engine roared to life, echoing her shifting emotions. As they drove through the dimly lit streets of Willow Creek, she opened up in hesitant fragments the weight of being a single mother, the loneliness that crept into her bones during quieter moments, and the hope that someday she'd build something to empower others like her. For the first time in what felt like forever, she had someone listening. But the nagging skepticism remained. Could he really understand? He was a man with means, a man who lived in a different universe than hers. "That's intense," Jake finally said, his voice more sober than before. Sarah could see it in his eyes, an unfamiliar glimmer of recognition. It startled her. As she silently battled her assumptions about him, his next words sliced through the heavy air between them. "I wish I could fix that for you." Just then, her attention faltered, and her car scraped against a mailbox on the road's shoulder. A jarring jolt of adrenaline surged through her. What had she done? Her heart raced. The harsh reality of the accident slammed into her. The situation had just escalated into something far more complicated. Suddenly, the laughter of their earlier moments felt like distant echoes of a life not truly theirs. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The collision forced her to confront the invisible lines she'd drawn. Was there room in her life for someone like him? She felt the pressure escalate. Their worlds were galaxies apart, the déjà vu of those despising rich men whispered taunts in her ear. Yet, standing on the edge of vulnerability, the spark in Jake's eyes ignited something unfamiliar in her, a longing for redemption. As days turned into weeks, the intersection of their lives unraveled threads of newfound possibility, and Sarah couldn't shake the fear clawing at her heart. What if he turned out to be just like all the other men who walked away? The truth hung thick in the air, ready to suffocate. Could they really build a bridge across the divide, or was she destined to drown in her doubts? The clatter of dishes in the diner echoed in Sarah's mind as she lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling. What had started as a chaotic drive home had spiraled into a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions she could barely contain. The scrape against the mailbox wasn't just about the car. It was the start of a change she hadn't anticipated. What if she could steer her life in a new direction? In the quiet of her small apartment, she wrestled with herself. She barely had enough time to tend to her son, let alone indulge in dreams of ambition. But Jake had seen her. He had listened, really listened. And something about that was both unnerving and exhilarating. The flicker of possibility kindled an unexpected fire within her, one that flickered brighter the more she thought about it. Eventually, exhaustion claimed her, and sleep came in fits and starts, plagued with images of the stark contrast between her mundane reality and the lavish world Jake seemed to inhabit. And as the morning sun broke through the curtains, painting the room in shades of gold, Sarah knew she couldn't let this moment escape her. She found herself at her computer, fingers hovering above the keyboard. What was she even searching for? Inspiration? A sign? Instead, she discovered the website for Jake's company, a gleaming tech hub filled with game-changing ideas and innovation. As she clicked through their latest projects, a sense of familiarity washed over her. This was the world she had longed to be part of, a world where she could enact actual change. Suddenly, her son's laughter filtered through from the other room, grounding her amidst the confusion. She thought of the better life she wanted for him. She remembered the conversations they had about dreams, expressing without hesitation what they imagined their future could be. That innocence urged her forth, igniting her passion to create a different narrative for them both. Compelled to act, Sarah crafted an email to Jake, pouring herself into words, her struggles as a single mom, her ambitions, the dream of nurturing other women like herself. It felt freeing, exhilarating, stripping away the fear that wrapped around her like a shroud. This was the moment she stopped being a passive player in her life. Pressing send, she felt a rush of adrenaline mixed with anxiety. This would either introduce her to a new journey or lead to rejection. But regardless of the outcome, she was no longer a spectator. She was ready to step into the light. The day wore on, each passing hour filled with a mixture of dread and anticipation. Alone in the diner that evening, even the scent of stale coffee did little to deter her thoughts. Moments of doubt crept in. What if she was wrong about Jake? What if he deemed her too small, too insignificant to matter? Yet, as she wiped down the counter, the familiar blue glow of her phone illuminated a response from Jake. I'm intrigued by your email. Let's meet and discuss your ideas. Heart pounding, she felt a rush of elation. This could be the turning point she had long awaited. But trepidation lingered. What would happen when their worlds collided again? Would they fall back into their established roles, or could she prove that someone like her could make an impact? That moment haunted her thoughts as she prepared for their meeting. A coffee shop, neutral ground. She'd spent hours rehearsing her pitches and reviewing the company's projects, determined to validate her presence in this new domain. Unknowingly, Sarah stood before a crucible of change. Challenges loomed ahead that would test her resolve and commitments. Would she find strength in this newfound opportunity? But also, what would Jake reveal about the man behind the CEO facade, and could it possibly align with the person she aspired to be? As she walked into the coffee shop, the future shimmered uncertainly ahead. Now was the time to face everything she had avoided for so long. The moment of truth approached. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee washed over Sarah as she stepped into the coffee shop, arousing her senses in the midst of her swirling thoughts. The low hum of conversation mingled with the clinking of cups, creating a cacophony that mirrored the internal chaos battling within her. She had arrived early, her nerves pulsing like a drumbeat in her chest, reminding her of what was at stake. Finding a spot by the window, she took a deep breath, letting the natural light bathe her, hoping it could infuse her with confidence. The shadows of her ordinary life loomed within her, the weight of her decisions pressing against her ribcage. Drawing her focus inward, she rifled through her mental notes, reviewing ideas and strategies. Each concept she planned to present was not just a pitch, it was a testament to her evolution. Every imagined word from Jake became a reflection of her hidden aspirations, perhaps even a doorway into a world she barely dared to explore. then she noticed him, Jake, entering in a tailored suit that radiated authority and charisma. Her heart stuttered, caught off guard by the split between the man she knew and the enigmatic figure standing before her. Memories of their last encounter clashed with the present, sifting through her mind like leaves in the fall. Would he still see her as she had been? The quiet woman who clutched her apron with both hands? Or could he recognize the transformation stirring beneath her surface? "Hey, Sarah," Jake greeted, his voice warm and inviting yet layered with curiosity. "Thanks for agreeing to meet." His polite smile instantly filled the space with ease, yet the familiarity of their past made Sarah's stomach knot. "Thanks for inviting me," she managed to reply, her voice steadier than she felt. As they settled into the rhythm of conversation, she found comfort in Jake's willingness to engage with her, his questions revealing an unmasked interest in her thoughts. He probed deeper than expected, inquiring about her inspirations and aspirations with a sincerity that stirred something within her. As Sarah shared her ideas, she felt the tentative wraps of self-doubt begin to unravel. Each word she spoke bore the weight of her dreams, the desire to support women like herself who were grappling with the same struggles of balancing motherhood and ambition. The pulse in her chest grew steadier, finding its rhythm as her voice gained confidence, but as her excitement unfolded into a rough outline of her vision, she sensed a subtle shift in Jake's demeanor. Was he impressed? Skeptical? She searched his face for clues, for reassurance that her dream was not too far-fetched, the tug of insecurities creeping back into her thoughts. "Your passion is evident," he began, though his tone carried a hint of caution. "But I wonder, is this something you can truly handle alongside your responsibilities at home? You're tackling a lot with your son being so young." The question pierced her, bringing her back to the insecurities that plagued her life. Perhaps he was right. Could she truly execute anything worthwhile on top of her duties as a single mother? The old fears reared their heads. There was a choice to be made, a crossroads where ambition clashed with fear, fists clenching under the table. Sarah realized this was why she had come. This moment was meant to illuminate her strength, to forge the path she craved. "I am not looking for an easy road, Jake," she declared, an unexpected fire igniting her voice. "I want to prove that I can build something remarkable. This goes beyond just me." Jake's eyes widened slightly, his interest piqued. "You're saying you're ready to fight for this? Because the road isn't easy," he cautioned, yet there was an undercurrent of admiration in his gaze. Her heart raced. Could this finally be the breakthrough she needed? The moment to prove herself not just to him, but to herself? "Absolutely," she affirmed, feeling a great weight lift as clarity began to suffuse her thoughts. "I'm ready to embrace the challenges. I want to create space for women who think they don't belong in this arena." Then, she saw it in Jake's expression, an acknowledgement, a challenge, the dawning of a potential partnership that could change everything. Just as she was about to press forward with her ideas, her phone buzzed insistently in her pocket. The unexpected sound drew both their gazes, and her heart skipped a beat as she fumbled to silence it. The moment had felt so clear, filled with potential. But now, she realized that clarity often preceded uncertainty. She had opened herself to possibilities, and yet the looming responsibility at home still whispered ominous doubts. What momentous decision lay ahead? And would she have the strength to confront whatever awaited her when she walked out of that coffee shop? Sarah's heart raced as she silenced her phone, tension coiling within her. The interruption, so sudden and disruptive, felt like a small crack in the fragile confidence she had begun to build. She was precariously balanced between the exhilarating leap into the unknown and the familiar safety of her old life. Jake's attentiveness was palpable, his eyes flickering with questions unspoken. It struck her that, despite the weight of the moment, she possessed a newfound determination, an ignited spark that had been cramped for too long. "Sorry about that," she murmured, grateful for a moment to regain her composure. She observed him, noticing the fine lines of concentration framing his brow, and felt the dual pull of admiration and intimidation. "Where were we?" She attempted to steer the conversation back, but mentally she was racing ahead, envisioning what could come next if she seized the opportunity that lay before her. "I'm curious about your inspiration," he replied, leaning forward, his expression serious yet inviting. "Driving this project is a risk. Why take it?" His words summoned the burdens of doubt that had sneaked in, but instead of deteriorating into hesitation, she confronted them. "Because if I don't try, I'll never know. I've spent too long teaching my son about courage. Isn't a time I live by that?" Each word blossomed with meaning, igniting a fierceness deep within her. This wasn't just an entrepreneurial venture, it was a testament to her identity, a declaration against the narrative that had kept her bound for years. The realization was liberating. She was ready to rewrite her story. Jake nodded slowly, absorbing her words. "That's powerful, Sarah. Authenticity resonates more than anything in this field." His voice, no longer a mere observer, carried a warmth that comforted her but stirred doubt deep down. What did he see in her that she had yet to see in herself? As they continued to hash out ideas, solutions blossomed in her mind, practical strategies, marketing insights, community engagement that could bolster her vision. Sarah felt the words flow, her passion becoming tangible. The air around her seemed to shimmer with possibilities, and even Jake began to lean back, accepting her assertions with respect, a new dynamic sparking between them, but along with the excitement came clarity of the challenges ahead. The prospect of stepping into the unknown twisted her stomach into knots. Would her newfound strength be enough to sustain her when difficulties arose? The potential to elevate herself alongside her son felt like balancing on a tightrope with unsteady footing. Just then, the reality of her responsibilities crashed like a wave, pulling her from the heights of ambition back to earth. "What if I fail?" she questioned abruptly, her facade wavering as vulnerability crept into her voice. "What if I can't hold it together at home? What if I disappoint everyone?" Jake's expression morphed, concern flooding his features. "There's no guarantee, but isn't it better to try than to live a life of doubts and what-ifs? You owe it to yourself, and your son." His words resonated, yet the echoes of fear lingered. Could she realistically face the inevitable setbacks? Every avenue of her life was about to intertwine with this new idea. Taking a deep breath, she glanced at the notebook resting on the table, a canvas of aspirations waiting to be painted with her actions. She needed to believe in her vision fiercely enough that it could carry her past doubt, and in that moment, she made a silent vow to chase this dream. The conversation shifted from aspirations to specifics, but Sarah's mind raced ahead. There was still the question lingering: how would she navigate each new obstacle without slip-ups affecting her home life? As they discussed timelines and potential strategies, her phone buzzed again, insistent and reminder-like. She retrieved it, her heart pounding harder now, recognizing that this was her life, not just a project but her self-worth on the line. Glancing at the message displayed, her son's daycare had called. There was an urgent issue. Her pulse quickened, and her instincts kicked in. Fragments of her ambition collided with her immediate reality, the jarring juxtaposition of motherhood and her aspirations demanding her full focus. "Sorry, I need to take this," she said apologetically, the gravity of her roles crashing together. As she stepped outside, she could feel the walls closing in. What did this mean for the conversation they had just started? Would the flame of ambition she had ignited extinguish the moment she returned to the chaos of everyday life? Amid her thoughts, one truth dawned on Sarah: her battle was not just within her but would echo in every decision moving forward. The path to her aspirations would require more than courage. She would have to summon an inner resilience she had yet to discover. Before she could ponder her next steps, a small crowd gathered at the entrance, raising her anxiety as varying voices began to ripple through the air. The importance of her decision stretched far beyond her imagination, and she realized that she was standing at the threshold of two lives, one comfortingly known and the other beckoning her toward uncharted waters. What awaited her upon returning could shift everything. Would she find the strength to balance both worlds, or was the looming chaos of her son's situation about to redefine her journey entirely? Sarah stepped outside, her mind racing as she switched gears from ambition to anxiety. She found a corner where the noise faded into the background, offering a moment's respite. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows that seemed to reflect the duality of her life, the light of opportunity and the darkness of uncertainty. Taking a deep breath, she dialed the daycare number, feeling the phone buzz against her palm like an impatient reminder of her responsibilities. "This is Sarah," she said, trying to sound calm, but her voice wavered. "Hello, Sarah. We have a situation with your son." The daycare worker's voice was steady but filled with a note of urgency. "He is fine, but we need you to come as soon as possible." A knot formed in Sarah's stomach, panic clawing at her chest. A million thoughts hurtled through her mind. What if he was sick? What if he felt abandoned while she chased her dreams? She pictured his face, so trusting and bright, and the weight of her choices pressed harder. "Okay, I'm on my way," she replied quickly, ending the call as anxiety swirled around her. How could she juggle the demands of her son with the ambition that was slowly unfurling in her? The juxtaposition of her personal and professional life felt increasingly daunting. She remembered Jake's encouraging words and the passion igniting her vision, but the reality of motherhood was crashing down like a wave. She was faced with a choice: prioritize her son's immediate needs or continue to carve out a path that could elevate their lives. Sarah's mind whirled with scenarios as she walked to her car, the engine sputtering to life with a loud roar, mirroring the turmoil within her. Could she really step into this new role while being the mother her son deserved? Each moment felt more momentous than before. She couldn't afford to fail, not now. As she drove, the city blurred past her, a mix of familiar streets and places she had yet to explore in her new venture. Her thoughts shifted like the changing scenery, a mental exercise in planning yet also tethered by fear. Every ambition brought with it burdens, every goal rivaling the responsibilities she knew defined her. When she arrived at the daycare, her heartbeat quickened. She jumped out of the car, her focus zeroed in on the entrance. Each step felt heavier than the last, weighted by the lives intertwined with her decisions. Inside, she spotted her son sitting on a small chair, his face stained with a tear. Relief washed over her, but it was undercut by guilt. Had she let him down already? "Mommy." His eyes lit up as she approached, the warmth of his embrace cutting through her doubts. She held him tightly, vowing silently that she wouldn't lose this connection as she chased her dreams. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, cupping his face in her hands. "All done?" he asked simply, innocent and trusting, unaware of the turbulent waters she was navigating. "Yes," she said, bracing herself against the flood of ambition clashing with maternal instinct. "But it's going to be more fantastic from now on, I promise." Empowered, she felt the first flicker of resilience unfolding. She began to envision how her ambitions could weave seamlessly into her role as a mother. What if, instead of viewing her aspirations as an encroachment on her responsibilities, she framed them as a means to provide for her son? As they left the daycare, hands clasped together, she pondered a new approach. This was no longer just about her, it was about crafting a legacy that her son could be proud of. Back in the car, her heartbeat calmed, thoughts tightening into a single narrative. Maybe this challenge wasn't insurmountable. Maybe it was the catalyst she needed to merge her family and her goals. Yet, the unanswered question remained: would her determination withstand the trials ahead? What awaited her was not just the next step in her project, but a confrontation with the deeper fears of failure, potential setbacks, and the unyielding balancing act that was motherhood intertwined with her emerging professional identity. As the car hummed along the road, Sarah felt a familiar tension building within. Would the choices she made next strengthen her resolve, or would they pull her back into the shadows of doubt? One thing was certain: it was time to face the reality that lay ahead, and she would have to dig deeper than ever before to protect both her ambitions and her family. As the wheels turned beneath her, a newfound determination settled in Sarah's chest. A vision of her son's bright smile lingered, reminding her of the promise she had made. She envisioned a future where they thrived together, not merely surviving but becoming a dynamic duo, each supporting the other in their individual pursuits. Yet, an unsettling tension still buzzed in the air, a remnant of the weight she had felt when the daycare called. Reaching their shared home, a small, modest space full of warmth and laughter, Sarah resolved to harness her professional hunger into productivity without sacrificing her role as a mother. She needed a strategy, something tangible to bridge the gap between her ambition and her responsibilities. "Let us make dinner together," Sarah offered, trying to shift her son's attention away from the lingering sadness of his earlier upset. In his eyes, she saw a flicker of joy. They set to work side by side, chopping vegetables, measuring rice, every interaction a lesson in cooperation, trust, and most importantly, presence. As they cooked, the kitchen filled with the rich smells of simmering food, but it was the undercurrent of purpose that heightened Sarah's senses. She used this time not just to play the role of a mother, but to reinforce to herself that each moment raised their shared aspirations. This wasn't just dinner, it was a dual investment in their futures. In the midst of sautéing onions, a thought struck her like a lightning bolt, one unable to be ignored. What if she used this dinner time to teach him about dreams and goals? "You know, buddy," she started, her voice reflectively soft, "Mommy's working on something really big right now." "What is it?" he asked, his little hands stilling for a moment. "It's a project to help mommies and daddies like us, hardworking people who want to make better lives for their families." His eyes grew wide, curiosity overtaking any remnants of distress. "Can I help?" An unexpected swell of pride filled her. "Absolutely. We can brainstorm ideas together." A smile spread across her son's face, she saw it as a small victory. This was what she craved, to teach him about resilience, determination, and how dreams could steer the course of life. That evening, as they ate, they outlined their big project using crayons and a scrap of paper, infusing simple concepts with excitement. Sarah threaded together various calming and motivating phrases, deliberately molding his understanding of persistence. Yet, even as they engaged in this bonding, a gnawing doubt pulsed quietly: would the energy she spent nurturing this child be enough to fuel her own ambitions? After dinner, Sarah cleaned up while her son sat cross-legged, drawing more on the floor. With each sweep of the sponge, she contemplated tangible steps to take, ways to actualize her vision. What connections could she make? Who could help mold her ideas into reality? A surge of creativity began to surface to the forefront of her mind. After putting her son to bed, Sarah settled at her desk with a cup of herbal tea. The evening continued to unfold, quiet but charged. Fueled by the day's interactions, she seized her laptop, sketching out her project proposal, initial thoughts morphing into structured ideas spilling out across the digital page. She forced herself to remain focused, translating her personal conflicts into actionable insights for the first time. Yet, as her ambition began to take shape, a wave of self-doubt crashed through her. How could she genuinely pursue this endeavor while still being completely present for her son? The struggle spiraled. She questioned her ability to balance this new world she was constructing while upholding her responsibilities as a mother, and then, it came. The decisive moment, the weighty realization that she wasn't just a mother longing for fulfillment, she was a woman brimming with ideas and resilience. It was time to own that dual identity without apology. She had the potential to intertwine both realms, to allow her passion to drive her family's future. Sarah glanced at the clock, her heart racing once again. In that exact moment of clarity, she knew she had to reach out to Jake. He had once mentioned that he had connections in the business community, people who loved helping others like her. She hesitated, finger hovering over his number, mind swirling with a mixture of fear and hope. The decision crystallized her trajectory. This was not merely seeking support, it was the fusion of her worlds. The time had come to face not just her ambition but to articulate what she needed to propel this vision forward. What would she say to Jake that would solidify her commitment to turning dreams into reality? And more importantly, could she risk the vulnerability of explaining how crucial these first steps felt, both for her son and herself? As her heart raced in anticipation, she exhaled deeply, ready to unveil her plan. After all, the moment for a transformative leap had arrived, and she needed to be both bold and strategic, even in uncertainty. Sarah sat in the dim light of her small office, the glow of the laptop illuminating the determination etched on her face. The moment was upon her, she could feel its pulse thundering in her chest. With her finger still hovering above Jake's name, the weight of what she was about to do crashed over her like a wave, compelling yet terrifying. She drew in a breath, reminding herself of her purpose. This was not solely about her, it was about the legacy she wanted to build for her son. With a steadying exhale, she pressed dial. The ringing drummed in her ears, each tone echoing her growing anxiety. But she was resolute, the two worlds she inhabited could no longer exist in isolation. She needed to forge a path that intertwined both. Sarah. Jake's voice crackled through the line, warm and familiar. It's great to hear from you. Hey, Jake. I hope this isn't a bad time. Could she even articulate her aspirations in a coherent manner? Her thoughts scrambled like autumn leaves in a gust of wind. Not at all, he replied. What's on your mind? Sarah felt a fleeting flash of self-doubt. This wasn't a casual chat, this was her opening. I've been thinking about what we talked about before, helping families. I'm ready to take a step forward. I have some ideas, but I could really use your guidance. Of course, Jake responded, his voice reassuring. I'd love to hear what you've come up with. The gentle nudge of encouragement stirred something within her. She launched into a passionate description of her project, how she envisioned creating resources for parents like herself, striving to balance life and ambition. Words flowed as she recounted the dinner she had shared with her son, a collaboration that took the form of crayons and dreamlike sketches. Jake's silence on the other end of the call seemed vast. A flurry of thoughts struck her. What if he didn't get it? What if he dismissed her ideas? Just as she began to spiral into doubt, he spoke again, his tone considerately measured. Sarah, this is fantastic. I know several people who could help you get started. We can brainstorm together, and I can introduce you to some potential investors. His words were like a burst of sunlight through the clouds. She could hardly wrap her head around the possibility, the realization that she could navigate this dual life. But alongside her growing excitement, a whisper of uncertainty still lingered. But, Jake, I can't let this take time away from my son. I need to be there for him. Of course. But think of it this way, building something for your future could set a tremendous example for him. You'd be showing him how to chase a dream while still nurturing all the ones he has. The comment hung in the air, penetrating deeply as a sudden revelation. Perhaps it wasn't just about balancing responsibilities, it was about creating a ripple effect of inspiration. Her son would see her striving, her willingness to confront challenges. Okay, she said, a newfound vigor in her voice. Let's talk specifics. As she delved deeper into their conversation, Sarah felt herself pushing aside the last vestiges of doubt. She began to sketch an outline of her goals, their discussions molding her amorphous ideas into something tangible, recognizable. Every collaboration had its risks, but she was now driven by the belief that this endeavor could benefit both her and her son. After hanging up with Jake, Sarah felt a mix of exhilaration and discomfort. She had taken a leap, yet she still hadn't truly confronted the skepticism within her. She slid into bed, reflecting on the path she had just begun. There was a long way to go, challenges sure to come, and she would need additional support from within her new network, but as she drifted into sleep, she clutched the small crayon drawing her son had made, his innocent interpretation of their dream project. Tomorrow would be filled with new possibilities, and the vision felt as real as the soft breaths of her sleeping child beside her. As dawn began to break, Sarah awoke with the realization that courage would be her greatest ally. The challenge of another day loomed ahead. Could she start building connections and gaining traction without losing sight of her priorities? With her mind racing, she questioned her next move. Was she prepared to step beyond her comfort zone and meet potential partners? A knot of anticipation twisted in her stomach, but as with every challenge, she pushed forward. The moment of truth was drawing closer, and she was tired of postponing her dreams. In the world of practicalities and emotions that blended, Sarah envisioned the table she would set meeting her business allies, blending personal commitment with professional drive. The next chapter of her journey was about to unfold. Would she find the courage to take that fateful step into entrepreneurial territory? The sun filtered through the curtains, casting a golden hue across the room as Sarah hurried through her morning routine. Each moment felt charged with potential, the weight of her decision to take her aspirations seriously driving her forward. She poured herself a cup of coffee, her hands slightly trembling not from fatigue but from the urgency of what lay ahead. Today wasn't just another day, it was the day she would reach out to the connections Jake had suggested. The fear that accompanied ambition hung like a specter, yet beneath it was the thrill of possibility. As she sought to organize her thoughts, bated breath hung in the air. What do I really want? She mused, the question echoing in her mind. It wasn't merely about financial success, it was about authenticity, about translating her lived experiences into a resource that could empower others. The very essence of her journey was interwoven with her role as a mother, and every decision she made would reflect that duality. She settled at her desk, where piles of notes mingled with half-formed ideas laced with uncertainty. The dim glow of her laptop screen welcomed her as she opened a blank document. Sarah took a deep breath and began typing out a project outline, the words spilling out like secrets waiting to be shared. She envisioned an online platform for parents' blogs, videos, forums offering tangible help for those, like her, struggling to weave together work and family life in a society that often demands perfection. Hours melted away as she transformed her hopeful thoughts into tangible plans. But with every keystroke, the nagging voice of self-doubt crept back in. Was she truly qualified to create something like this? Who would listen to her? Each question felt like a shadow lurking just outside her mental light. She forced herself to confront it. What if I fail? She whispered, grappling with the weight of her fears. But then she remembered her son's conviction, how he believed wholeheartedly in her potential. With renewed determination, she recalled Jake's address book filled with contacts. Taking a breath to steady herself once more, she decided to take the plunge. Sarah reached for her phone, fingers skimming over the promised names. Each one represented a doorway, an opportunity not just to gather support for her project, but a chance to show her son the art of engaging with the world around her. The first call went to an investor Jake had mentioned, someone known for believing in ventures that centered on community support. As she listened to the call ringing, nervousness flared within. It was an urge to disconnect, to retreat into her safe bubble. But she stood her ground, reminding herself of her vision, battling against the instinct to falter. Hello? A crisp voice spoke, and all breath left Sarah for a brief moment. Hi, is this Alex? This is Sarah Carter. She introduced herself, a tremor catching her voice. She pressed on, recounting her vision as purpose replaced fear. As she spoke, her passion propelled her. Her words became a bridge spanning her uncertainties and aspirations. The conversation veered into specifics, sketches of a life she was beginning to claim for herself. Alex was intrigued. He asked challenging questions, forcing her to think critically about her ideas. With each inquiry, Sarah felt her confidence solidifying, like clay sculpted into something meaningful. She set a meeting for next week, excitement flickering dangerously close to anxiety, envisioning the moment as a pivotal point. After the call ended, exhilaration surged through her. She was making moves, gathering momentum she hadn't known she could summon. But it was accompanied by the gnawing question that loomed larger: how would this new venture impact her time with her son? She sprang into action, preparing for her next call. Drawing strength from the crayon drawing she had kept by her computer, a representation of what her desires could become, she dialed another number, heart beating in tandem with her ambition. Each contact she reached out to felt like both a risk and a fortifying step towards a reality she desperately wanted to manifest. In the haze of her enthusiasm, Sarah puzzled over the days ahead. The fear of neglecting her role as a mother haunted her. But the vision of building something meaningful kept her anchored. Would navigating this path redefine her relationships? Would she lose herself in the labyrinth of her ambitions, or would it be a journey of rediscovery? As Sarah concluded yet another call, it was clear that there were challenges ahead, but she stood steadfast, aware that each decision would have far-reaching effects. The time for reflection and doubt was fading, the time to act was upon her. Was it possible that her dream of becoming an entrepreneur could harmoniously exist with her identity as a mother? In her heart, Sarah felt the undercurrents of anxiety coil tightly. The next milestone loomed, an upcoming meeting that would demand all of her newfound courage. Would she rise to the occasion, or would the tempest of her self-doubt collide with opportunity? The intersection of her professional pursuit and personal existence was unfolding, a delicate dance she was only beginning to learn. As she refocused on her goals, the journey carved out ahead felt more daunting than ever. How would she confront the inevitable challenges that lay within this dual trajectory? That question now weighed heavily on her mind as the dawn of a new chapter approached. Nervous energy thrummed in Sarah's veins as the day of her meeting dawned. Recognition of the volatility between her ambitions and her responsibilities as a mother loomed over her. She had worked tirelessly, but now, as she dressed for the occasion, each movement felt symbolic, an act of defiance against the lingering doubts that had shadowed her. Would the risk be worth the potential upheaval in her personal life? As she slipped on a tailored jacket, the fabric felt like armor. Mirrors reflected a woman balancing precariously on a tightrope strung between two worlds: entrepreneurship and motherhood. The crayon drawing her son had created sat prominently on her desk, a reminder of why she was striving for this leap. "I'm doing this for you," she affirmed softly, and she felt a flicker of honesty in her resolve. On the way to the coffee shop where she was meeting Alex, her mind raced with possible outcomes. She rehearsed the pitch in her head, hoping to capture both the fervor of her vision and the necessity behind it. Then, a more disturbing thought crept in: was she just a fraud masquerading as a burgeoning entrepreneur? What if he saw through her facade? The weight of self-doubt threatened to reclaim her mindset. She arrived at the cafe early, nerves rendering her fingers icy as she wrapped them around her coffee cup. The aroma surrounded her, providing an illusion of comfort amidst the storm of emotions. Watching the other patrons engage in lively conversation, she swallowed hard. They seemed so sure, so complete, while she felt fragmented between roles, a puzzle piece trying to fit into either corner but never entirely belonging. When Alex entered, she straightened. There was a striking sharpness to him, eyes clear and confident. He approached with an affable smile that trailed off slightly when he took a seat, studying her intently. "Sarah, great to finally meet you in person," he said, extending a hand. "Thanks for meeting with me," she replied, firm yet shaky. She took a breath, forcing herself to push beyond the anxious walls she fortified around her. They exchanged small talk before diving into the meat of the discussion. With each minute that passed, Sarah detailed her vision: the mission, the target audience, the unique features that set her platform apart. Yet, between the confident assertions of her ideas, self-doubt lingered like a whisper. Would Alex see the value? Would he deem her worthy of his belief and resources? Several probing questions later, Alex leaned back in his chair, his brow furrowing. "You have a solid concept, but I can't help but wonder how you're planning to balance this new venture with your responsibilities at home. From what I've gathered, you're a single mom, correct?" The question felt like a hammer landing on delicate glass. Sarah's heart raced as anxiety flared, threatening to unravel her focus. Was this her moment of reckoning? "Yes," she answered, voice steadier than she felt. "I'm committed to doing both. I want to show my son that chasing dreams is worth it, even when it's difficult." His expression softened, but the challenge in his tone remained. "It's inspiring, but dreams can come at a price. How do you plan to navigate that without losing sight of what matters most in your life?" The dichotomy he presented struck her deeply. It ignited a nerve she had chosen to ignore. The trepidation of failing her son weighed heavily on her. "I want to empower other parents who face similar dilemmas," she asserted. "By sharing my experience, I hope to create a support network, one that I wish I had while trying to manage everything." Alex leaned in, interest piqued. You're tapping into a relatable narrative, but authenticity will matter. People will connect with you only if they sense your honesty in it. If you're feeling overwhelmed, that could resonate too. The fire within her sparked stronger. For all the hesitations she faced, this was her truth. Empowerment was not just about success but about vulnerability and reaching out when there was no blueprint to follow. As they wrapped up the meeting, Alex proposed collaborating further, intrigued by the potential that lay in her concept. A heady mix of hope and anxiety writhed within her. Despite the uncertainty about how she would reconcile this new endeavor with her role as a mother, this defined moment suggested she might indeed be standing at the precipice of change, but just as exhilaration began to blossom, another thought crystallized, darkening her mood. What would happen if her new pursuit dominated her life and left an emotional chasm at home? Would her son feel neglected? The answer haunted her as she left the coffee shop, a bitter contrast to her earlier excitement. The path ahead was winding, and despite a new partnership forming, uncertainty hung thick in the air. Would this collaboration lead her toward the life she envisioned, or would it unravel the delicate balance she so desperately sought to maintain? As she stepped into the world beyond the cafe, a new question emerged, pushing her into a deeper reflection. Had she truly laid the groundwork for something monumental, or had she merely flirted with the danger of sacrificing everything she loved? The weeks that followed were a mix of exhilaration and trepidation for Sarah. She had entered a partnership with Alex, fueled by her passion to create a supportive community for parents juggling similar struggles. Each planning session felt like a step closer to her dream, yet the weight of potential failure lurked ominously. She was laying down a framework, drafting resources, and crafting content, but every evening brought back memories of her initial fears about neglecting her son. One evening, as she sat at the dining table combing through drafts, her son peeked in, curiosity painted all over his face. "What were you doing, Mommy?" he asked, his tiny features illuminated in the soft glow of the lamp. In the pause that followed, Sarah glimpsed the crossroads before her. Could this new endeavor envelop all her time, potentially overshadowing every moment meant for him? "What if I told you I'm building something amazing for mommies and daddies?" she replied, sparking a flicker of intrigue in his eyes. The happiness that unfurled within her was a conviction, a notion that, by navigating her ambition alongside motherhood, she could set a foundation of resilience for both of them. Over the next few days, she spoke openly with him about her project. He would become her first critique and her greatest cheerleader. She even incorporated him in the process, finding inspiration in crafting stories through games and drawings. Her son's laughter became a soothing balm that reinforced her drive, and in those playful interactions, she witnessed the very bond she feared losing deepened. As the weeks turned into months, the launch of the platform drew near. Her anxiety simmered beneath the surface, doubts crept in during quiet moments, yet they were tempered by invaluable validation. Not only had she built a network that began to resonate with families, but Sarah had also learned how to balance her worlds. The fine line she once wavered on became a pathway lined with purpose, strength, and growth. The day of the official launch arrived with a sense of palpable vibrancy. Accumulated work translated into tangible results: a fully functioning platform with articles, videos, community forums, and success stories from parents who had once felt isolated. The moment she hit the publish button felt monumental. It symbolized a leap taken into both her entrepreneurial ambition and her role as a dedicated mother. Later, surrounded by her friends and family, her heart swelled with pride as she watched her son excitedly recount the story behind their world project to attendees. Tears pricked her eyes, not out of despair, but of fulfillment. She had witnessed an evolution not only in herself but also in her son, who burst with excitement at being part of something bigger. In the weeks after the launch, feedback poured in. Words of appreciation flooded her inbox from parents thanking her for bridging a gap they had long felt alone in. Sarah received invitations to speak, encouraged dialogue, her authenticity and vulnerability resonating deeply with others facing similar battles. Jake had re-entered her life to offer further support, having seen the ripple effect her project created. They shared updates, strategies, and encouragement, their relationship buoyed by mutual respect, and then came the evening of her first speaking engagement, a local event where she would share her story. There, standing in front of eager faces, Sarah felt an unfettered strength pour through her. In sharing the lessons of balance she discovered, she was no longer just a mother trying to survive. Instead, she embraced her identity as a capable entrepreneur dedicated to making meaningful change for families in her community. As she wrapped up her stories, the audience erupted in applause, not just out of courtesy but from genuine connection. The recognition she craved internally echoed through their responses. In that moment, the years of struggle and dramatic self-revelation crystallized into something beautifully cohesive. True personal achievement had manifested in profound ways. With her son at her side, she stepped off the stage, a solid confidence coursing through her veins. The duality of motherhood and ambition no longer felt burdensome, but rather dynamic. Each echoed cheer cemented her resolve to continue thriving, directly impacting both her life and that of her son. Sarah stood resilient, proud to exhibit her newfound competence. This path was marked by yearning turned into action, vulnerability reborn as strength. Her journey, the challenge of taming ambition alongside the profound love of motherhood, was a narrative she would forever embrace, weaving them into a lasting legacy of empowerment and resilience. Now is the time to take action. You need to subscribe now to witness the next chapter of incredible stories about personal transformation. Leave a like now to support the channel, it truly fuels the journey. Comment your thoughts and theories on Sarah's journey, we want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who inspire you in their own journeys of overcoming challenges. Let us spread the power of personal growth together.